Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. So today's second video, which takes us into the middle of February, we'll be able to extend out a bit beyond that with the extended GFS and ECMWF as well. So it's turning milder with lots of the cold winds that we have for the end of January into the opening days of February. Milder areas pushing it off the Atlantic. We're in for a milder and more unsettled week this week. A lot of uncertainty about what's happening next week. High pressure looks like going to break us out of the unsettled spell that we're going to have this week and into the weekend. So I think we're going to find high pressure building next week. But where that high pressure is sitting is going to determine exactly the feel of the weather. If it sits to the south, it's going to be turning very mild next week. We'll draw up the air from the tropical Atlantic. If that high pressure is centrally located over the UK, then it'll probably be dry, cold and frosty, that sort of weather. If the high pressure was to get north, if it was to get anywhere towards Scandinavia or, let's say, Greenland or Iceland, then it would turn much colder again. We would pull the wind in from the north or the east. So the exact position of this high pressure is causing confusion within model output. The exact position of this high pressure is going to be critical. I think we're favouring the high pressure to be to the south and bringing up very mild air for a time anyway next week, but it's by no means certain, and I'll bring up to date with all of the latest developments very shortly. Just say that the February month-ahead forecast has been released at Gazzo today. It looks like we're in for some rather colder weather in the second half of February. That's what we're going for, but it's quite low confidence. Right, so we're getting on with the video. We're going to start off, as I promised you yesterday, just showing you a few pictures that have been shared with us on Twitter. So this one was shared by Mark Youngman. This is showing deep snow in Seaford, Austria. And Mark is trying to clear his roof. Very, very deep snow over there in Austria. They've had a really cold time of it. This was shared with us by Josho112. So this is the last day of snow in Harrogate. I think that is from yesterday. Pretty cold scene up there in Harrogate. On his way out now, of course. This is from Brett Johnson. This is or Brett Johansson. This is snow in Stockholm. Very snowy day yesterday in Stockholm. I think we're up to 30 centimetres of snow there now. That's around a foot. So the snow laying very, very deep in Stockholm. Vanessa Haywood sent this one through. It's showing frost patterns on the car, looking very pretty with the frost there over the weekend. That one was shared with us by Nathan. I'm not sure where Nathan is, but a pretty snowy looking scene there out of Nathan's window. Let's scroll down, have a look at a few more. That's James Ackrill's 18-year-old Jack Russell Poppy soaking up the afternoon sunshine over the weekend. Let's carry on down, see a few more. This was shared with us by Paul Finch. This is from, I think that's from Friday or Saturday, showing a very cold afternoon in Lancashire. No higher than -2, the temperature in Lancashire that afternoon. I think that's Friday. Looking very cold and snowy there. With Paul Finch in Lancashire. Michael Tanner shared this one with us. So this is snow in the Hope Valley. And if we carry on down, we can see that Matt Shaw had a very snowy scene up there on the North York Moors, looking pretty bleak and snowy. This one was from Adrian Major, sent to us over the weekend. Again, very snowy scenes in Gloucestershire. That's Richard Trott showing snow up in Redcar. That's Connor. I think Connor's up near Newcastle. And again, pretty snowy afternoon there on Friday and Saturday. These are frozen bubbles that James has been creating in I think James is in Lincolnshire. So James has been filming, photoing frozen bubbles, and they're looking quite pretty. We carry on down to Annette Marriott. I think Annette again is up towards Newcastle. Pretty deep snow there up in Newcastle on Friday. That one was sent to us on Friday. Dave Anderson showing a sprinkling of snow. Again, not sure where Dave is, but a sprinkling of snow there on Friday. Thomas Spencer, snowy looking rooftops where Thomas was. A video from Simon Cochran showing snow in Northumberland on Friday night. Snowy scene up there. Clayton Berry showing snow after the BBC had apparently said it was going to rain where he was, and Jamie showing that he had 20 centimetres of snow in Pucklechurch. I think that's down towards the Bristol area, so pretty deep snow lying there. That one's from John Seeley. Very creative looking snowman in Bath, where they had 7 inches of snow on Thursday and into Friday. Big thank you to all of you for sharing your pictures with us. If you want to have your pictures featured in the videos, then all you need to do is either email them to gazworthers@gmail.com. You can share them with us on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Of course, all those pictures came from Twitter. And also you can post them to the comment box at Gazworthers. When you've got time, we are happy to feature your pictures in the videos. Big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, let's get on with the video then, and these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is now in the absolute high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. So these are the mean flowcharts for 7 to 10 days time. It'll take us to around the 14th of February, around Valentine's Day, and we find that we've got an area of above average heights with the ECMWF centred over and a little bit to our northeast as well. So it's actually pulling in a bit of a cold easterly wind there in the 7 to 10 day time frame. I'll show you ECMWF in a moment. It is just about managing to pull in some quite cold winds from the east in the 7 to 10 day time frame. But look at the GFS. The placement of that high pressure is very different with the GFS. It's a lot further south in the 7 to 10 day time frame. It's kind of like across France and into Central Europe with low pressure up to the north and the west, and so that's bringing in a flat westerly flow. It's as flat as a pancake, and it will be a lot milder with that one. So again, as I said at the start of the video, the placement of this ridge of high pressure is causing all sorts of problems. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Upper air temperatures and precipitation looking at Shepperton in Surrey, very close, I think, to Charing Cross. And this is another suggested place on our list of locations for this part of the video. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Shepperton. And we can see we're pretty mild now. We've lost all the cold weather that we had last week and into the weekend. The winds have turned westerlies. Westerlies have returned. We're going to find things going a little bit cooler later in the week, but then mild again towards the end of the week and into the weekend. And then next week, still all this uncertainty. Look how much scatter we've got within the ensembles for next week. Now, most of these ensemble members, you have to say, are on the milder side. Most of them are above red line, and quite substantially so, actually. But there are still several colder members through this sort of mid to second half of February period. All of these ones down here are quite cold, and a few of them are going, you would say, even very cold. So again, between the mildest and the coldest ensemble members, we've got something like a 20-degree temperature differential, maybe even more than a 20-degree temperature differential with that one. It's a real outlier, but that one is going above 12 Celsius at 850 HPA. If that came off, it would probably lift temperatures into the upper teens Celsius. You'd probably be talking about 16, 17 degrees, can you believe, with that one in the middle of February. It's a real outlier, though. Most of them don't go to that sort of level. But at the same time, look, we've got this one down here that's going very close to -10 at 850 HPA. So a huge amount of uncertainty, and it all, I think, relates to the placement of that high pressure, where that high pressure is going to set up. If it sets up to the south, it will drag up very mild air from the tropical Atlantic and southern parts of Europe. If it sets up to the north, it'll turn us cold with winds from the north and the east. If it was to set up over the UK, the upper air temperatures will probably look quite mild, but it will give us frost and fog down on the surface. Now, precipitation-wise, a lot of rain coming up over the next week. Going to be a very unsettled week, but we can see from around the 12th, 13th of February onwards, we've got a clear drying trend appearing. So it doesn't look as though the return of the westerlies is going to last too long, actually. It doesn't look like the unsettled spell is going to last all that long before we're building up the ridge and turning things drier. The real question, though, with that will be the feel of the temperatures. Temperature anomalies for next week are going to be mild, whatever happens. So from the 4th to the 12th of February, we're in for a mild spell of weather with above average temperature anomalies for the UK and for Ireland. In fact, most parts of Europe are coming out above average. Precipitation anomalies from the 4th to 12th of February, a bit above average, a little bit wetter than average in the week ahead from the 4th through to the 12th. So it looks mild and unsettled in the next week. This is how the latest GFS run is looking then. This is for Thursday. Low pressure is out to the northwest of the UK. It looks unsettled, quite wet and windy. We're bringing more low pressure in across the country into Saturday. So Friday, Saturday, wet and windy. These unsettled conditions stay with us into weekend. Monday starts to pull down some colder air from the north. This is when we start to see the uncertainty creeping in. Some colder air is beginning to come down from the north. We're trying to build up this ridge from the southwest. So that's into Tuesday. This is Tuesday the 12th. High pressure is building up from the south within relatively cold air. So that's probably dry and cold with some pretty hard overnight frost, I would have thought. But then it's not long before we start to pull in these mild southwesterly winds. So this is taking us up towards day 10, which of course is Thursday the 14th of February. And we're bringing up this very mild southwesterly wind then with high pressure by this point centred across central parts of Europe. So GFS is still keen on this idea of a very mild push of air from the middle of the Atlantic around the middle part of February. That takes us into the more extended range. Eventually we start to get high pressure building over the top of the country, and we're trying to move it up towards Scandinavia. It doesn't really get to Scandinavia, but it does get to like the far south of Scandinavia, Denmark, and we are pulling in a rather colder easterly wind there right at the very end of the 6 o'clock GFS run. So the idea is that it turns a bit colder in the second half of the month. That's the operational run. This is a parallel GFS run. Again, looking quite unsettled on Thursday. Low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. These unsettled conditions stay with us into the weekend as well. A lot of low pressure driving in off the Atlantic. There's that northerly wind as we go into Sunday. The low pressure clears away to east of Scotland. We start to pull down this colder northerly wind. So the start of next week, a little bit of a cold snap. Winds are in from the north, enough to bring snow showers back to northern and eastern parts of the country, and some quite cold nights as well. Then the high pressure topples in, so that will give us more cold weather, dry cold weather there Tuesday the 12th with quite a bit of frost. In more extended range, now we don't get that push of southwesterly winds noticed with the parallel run. So this is day 10, 14th of February, and instead of that high pressure being like to our south and southeast, the high pressure is actually centred over the UK, and it's trying to ridge up towards Scandinavia. So that's a much colder week next week. Not particularly snowy, but there would be a lot of frosting with that, and sort of dry, cold conditions through next week on the parallel GFS run. It has a really good go again. That high pressure to Scandinavia and trying to turn the wind into the east just doesn't quite come off. Low pressure then comes barreling in from off the Atlantic. This is 300 hours away, Saturday 16th of February, and we have got a Scandinavian high by this point backing into the west of Russia. So you wouldn't want to rule out the chance of easterly winds really at that point, although the parallel doesn't quite put it off. And eventually the parallel does get us into that mild southwesterly flow. It takes much longer to do it. So very, very uncertain next week, even between the GFS operational and parallel runs. They are very uncertain on the placement of that ridge of high pressure. So how the ECMWF is looking, again, low pressure is moving in off the Atlantic at the end of this week, looking very unsettled, quite wet and windy conditions. Those unsettled conditions stay with us into the weekend. Then on Monday, we start to turn the wind into the north. It begins to become colder again. And then here comes this ridge from the southwest, trying to ridge up towards Scandinavia, you'll notice. And this ridge just stays with us then through much of next week. Doesn't really get to Scandinavia. It's kind of like centering around Denmark. So that's south of Scandinavia, but it's not getting into the Scandinavian peninsula. See what I mean? And it's kind of like across northern Germany, that sort of area. But it is pulling in an easy wind, and that will be a pretty cold wind. It's drawing in the air of the continent. The upper air temperatures aren't cold particularly, but I think down on the surface you would expect quite a lot of frost with that. So we've got for next week, we've got the operational GFS pulling up these very mild southwesterly winds. The parallel GFS is a lot colder with high pressure over the country and eventually trying to get to Scandinavia. The ECM is also a colder, drier option with an easterly wind, albeit not a long fetch easterly from Russia. So just highlights the uncertainty that we were seeing within the GFS ensembles, I think. Talking of ensembles, we'll finish off with the ECM ensembles. These are how the postage stamps are looking today from the Icelandic Met Office. So this is how these are the options that are on the table at day 10, which of course is 14th of February, Valentine's Day. So on the 9th, we've got 19 ECM ensemble members at day 10 that have high pressure centred to our south, low pressure out to the northwest. These ones are bringing in very mild southwesterly winds, so they're in line with the GFS operational run. 19 members of the ECM ensembles are siding with the GFS operational run and bringing up these mild southwesterly winds. At day 10. There's 17 ECM ensemble members that have high pressure kind of like over and to the east of the country. They're in line with the operational ECM run and I suppose the parallel GFS. They're anticyclonic. They're bringing in a slack easterly wind. They're probably quite cold. Then we get that northerly at the start of next week and then we build in the ridge. So they're probably quite cold, dry and frosty, those 17. They include the ECM operational and control run. And then there's another 15 that take that high pressure even further north. They're taking it to the north of Scotland and up to properly into Scandinavia, centering it across Norway. These are the coldest members. These are bringing in direct easterly winds, and there'd be pretty long fetch easterly winds as well. So you see again a big difference between the ECM ensembles in the placement of that ridge for next week, and it is the placement of that ridge that is causing all of this uncertainty within the model output. It gets even more uncertain as we get to 2 weeks away. These are how the postage stamps are looking with the ECM ensembles at 360 hours on the 19th of February. So we've got 16 members of the ECM ensembles that have that high pressure to the east of Scotland and into southern Scandinavia. So they're cold, bringing in a slack easterly flow, probably a fair amount of frost with that. Then we've got 12 that are very unsettled. So there's 12 members of the ECM ensembles in 2 weeks that have low pressure in the Atlantic. They're feeding in a mild west-southwesterly wind. And added to that is another 12, so that's 24 in total that have low pressure close to the country in 2 weeks' time. They're mild, also bringing in a west-southwesterly wind. And then finally, there's 11, these ones just here, that have high pressure to the north-northwest of Scotland and taking it up towards Greenland, and they're colder. They're bringing down cold northerly or northeasterly winds. So between the 16 that we've got there and the 11 there, that's a total of 27 members of the ECM ensembles that are going through quite cold weather in 2 weeks, albeit differing on the placement of that ridge of high pressure. And then there's another 12 and another 12 there, so that's 24 in total that are milder and more unsettled. So it's not quite a 50-50 split between the ECM ensembles in 2 weeks, but it's almost a 50-50 split between milder and colder options, all hinging on the placement of that ridge. So Next week, we're going to be focusing on where that ridge is going, and as I say, if it sets up to the south as the GFS operational running show, then it's going to be mild, potentially very mild next week. If it sets up over and a little bit to the east of the UK, then it will be dry but cold next week. It'll be a dry, cold week. Won't be necessarily all that apparent within the upper air temperatures. They might be quite mild, but on the surface, I think we would expect quite a lot of frost next week. And should that high pressure get any further north than like sort of northern Germany or Denmark, should it properly get to the Scandinavian peninsula and set itself up over Norway, then we will be looking at properly cold air returning from the north or northeast. So a couple of days ago, it looked like it was very probable that was going to turn really mild next week. And that may still be how this pans out in the end. It could well be. But there is a lot more uncertainty about next week's weather, and it certainly isn't impossible that whilst we might not go back into another particularly snowy spell of weather for the time being, we may have to contend with quite a bit of frost coming back through the course of next week. In between that, though, this week's going to be very unsettled. There'll be showers and longer spells of rain this week, and the winds are going to be quite strong as well, but temperatures will be mild, at least until the weekend. Right, that's it for today's videos. Tomorrow we're going to do the ECMWF 30-day look ahead. Have another week to 10-day video update as well tomorrow, so come back for all of that. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.